Chceš začať?
First of all, let me warmly and cordially welcome Mrs. Commissioner Ferreira in Slovakia and at this final conference of the Catching Up Regions initiative, for which at the Ministry of Investment we are placing a lot of focus on in terms of regional development and provision of technical assistance for 3 regions in Slovakia, the Prešov region, Banská Bystrica and Košice. At the same time, let me welcome Mrs. Deputy Prime Minister Remišová at this final conference, and I'm really glad that we can meet here finally physically and discuss all the topics, not only the success of this initiative, but also the challenges and problems which are ahead of us. Also, let me thank Mr. Lunter for hosting this conference at this beautiful hotel in the middle of Slovakia. Thank you very much. And I would like also to give the floor to Mr. Lunter, who is going to launch this final conference of the Catching Up Regions initiative, which will be followed by the speech of Mr. Majerský, President of the Prešov region, which is the region which has been the first region in the Catching Up Regions initiative. So thank you very much, and I would like to give the floor to Mr. Lunter.
Trošku takto to dáme. Ďakujem. V prvom rade dobré ráno.
First of all, good morning to everybody. Dear Ms. Commissioner, dear Ms. Deputy Prime Minister, Ms. Director, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests. At the beginning, let me share a few personal moments with you. I was born in Telgat in Horehron area, and thanks to that, what it's like when a region is neglected, when roads are not good, when you feel neglected by everybody else around you. But this experience from this region gave me a huge experience. And as Telgard was not in the focus of attention during the communist government, the collectivization came late, and I could experience real farmer life. And all farmers or pheasants are business people, entrepreneurs. And it helped me when I was setting up my company which is now employing more than 300 people, and also helped me with the decisions when I decided to take over the management of this office and make use of my experience. In my life, I learned that things can change, and I also could see that things were not changing around us. Later, when the era of darkness spread in our region, in the previous management of the self-government region, I decided that I would not just let it go, and therefore I combined my forces with a team of young, inspiring people to start a change. However, there are still issues. Solutions were not coming, but the team of young people were working hard to help us solve it. But there are still problems which are bigger than the scope of our region, and we cannot deal with them by ourselves. And therefore, I'm really pleased for Catching Up Region initiative, because this model is based on the premise that we should develop what is inside us, what is around us, and how we can utilize it and do things which work and which make sense. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome all of you in Banská Bystrica self-governing region, and For all my life, I've been convinced that my birthplace has huge opportunities for development, for finding its even hidden beauties and the development it needs. However, the tendency has rather been going the opposite direction. I don't want to go back to particular mistakes or errors which caused it in the past. And the truth is that we are a complicated region by its topography, composition of the population, economic heritage, and unfavorable circumstances. So it's not a coincidence that today at the Catching Up Regions conference about help to the least developed regions, I am welcoming you here in Banska Bystrica region. Our region needs that. Ladies and gentlemen, 4 years ago, when I was considering whether I would run for the position of the president of the region, I decided to go for it. I wanted to turn over the adverse tendency in our region, and together with a team of young collaborators, we managed to build clear and modern idea how to achieve the change. The real picture of what was the condition of our region was we found when we took over the office. After my predecessors, we found a really high quality gym in the cellar, which was only available to some VIPs, and we also found a bed in the back of the office of my predecessor, and it really showed how the region was doing. It was sleeping. We didn't have projects prepared for reconstruction of roads, for new development activities. However, thanks to the Catching Up Regions and the World Bank, we can change things. And why is Catching Up Regions so important for us? First, because it offers expertise and at the same time a protective hand. I have never heard of any other program in European activities which provide so much support and implementation assistance. When you start from the scratch and you need to eliminate doubts, such assistance is really inevitable. And the second one is connected with the first one. Catching Up Regions streamline the process. Therefore, they bring results in real life, in real time. It's extremely important. What would otherwise take like 7 years, this program can bring in a couple of years. And what traditional EU funds would do in years, we can manage within the scope of months. This is a significant difference compared to other programs and activities we have come across. Only thanks to this flexibility and engagement of both partners, the European Commission and World Bank, we managed in less than 2 years to prepare, test, and run pilots for solutions that have the possibility to change the lives of people in our region. This is something we have not been offered by any other program so far, which no aid has delivered so far, and which without the intervention of the World Bank and the European Commission would not be possible to create, to implement, and deliver the results. I am convinced that our project of integrated social services will serve not only to the elderly of our region, but it will show the direction how other regions will be developing. And from a lagging region, thanks to Catching Up initiative, we will become a leader. 8 high schools which will receive funding from Catching Up to get better tuition, better training of teachers, and develop study programs in cooperation with the business sector. This is something which is close to my heart. Because if there are no jobs, there are no people, and when there are no people, there are no children, and children is the future. Therefore, I'm not pleased to see statistics from the previous years about depopulation of the region, about closing down schools due to low numbers of children. Catching Up Regions will help us to overturn this tendency, and I am pleased to see the light at the end of the tunnel that life will not leave our region, because our ancestors were living here and we want to live here too. I don't want, and I cannot tell you everything because I want to tell you the most important things. In my opinion, Catching-up region is the showcase of how we can use European funds. I want to thank and ask both partners, representatives of the World Bank, the European Commission, to sustain in this project and to tell all supporters of the project our big thank you, because Catching-up regions initiative brings back hope to people that even in less developed regions can get palpable results and support projects based on subsidiarity, which is the main driving force in supporting least developed countries and least developed regions. And it's possible that the scissors can be opening but also closing, and that there is enough in our region for people to keep them here, to stay, live here, set up their new families, and hand over the region as our ancestors were doing to their children. Thank you for your attention.
Dear Commissioner, dear Director of the World Bank, dear Deputy Prime Minister, my dear colleague Ján Lunter, the President of the Banska Bystrica Self-Governing Region and also the host of this amazing event. First of all, I would like to thank you for yesterday's very successful, very nice evening where we had discussions, and very often at these events in an informal way we managed to deal with a lot of problems and solve them by having honest discussions where we also name the dark side of the matters, but we can discuss about them. I'm very happy that after 2 years, the Prešov Self-Governing Region can be present at another conference of the Catching-up Regions Initiative. The PSK has for a long time been at the tail of the development of Slovakia. It has the lowest GDP per capita. It has the highest unemployment rates in Slovakia. It has the biggest and the most problems that have not been solved for a long time. And I am not trying to point my finger at anyone or anything. I want to look forward, and I want to do my best in synergy, to work in synergy and solve these problems, to focus our efforts on the fact that the PSK, the World Bank, the European Commission, the Ministry, and the government of the Slovak Republic can change this current state, can change this current situation. We have made progress. We worked in 5 different components where we set some goals, some areas that we wanted to improve. And if somebody thinks that it was just, we were just going by a feeling that we should do this or that, it's absolutely not like that. We tried to include in the solution of all of these problems analyses, statistics, expert level discussions with the experts from the World Bank, as well as the experts from the European Commission. And yes, some of the steps we had to reevaluate, some of the decisions had to be changed, but always it was with the good of our people in mind and the good of the most vulnerable of us. I am very thankful that the individual areas, be it education, GIS, or the water and sanitation in the Snina district, or the marginalized Roma communities, all of these problems are problems that we are currently solving, and we want to achieve better results. I will give you a few examples. In the Snina district, where we have 32 municipalities, only 4 municipalities, including the town of Snina, there are only these have access to clean drinkable water and sanitation. This is definitely a big issue. 28 municipalities don't have the basic essential things to be able to live with the quality of living suitable for this century. And the water reservoir, which supplies water to both Košice region and Prešov region, is running out of water. These people are running out of water, and they need, for their further development, as well as the development of the municipality and the region, these basic things in their life, and water is the absolutely fundamental thing. There is also the beach, primeval forest, which is a beautiful part of our region. And through this forest, you can go into Poland, and you can see how Eurofunds can be drawn successfully and used to develop the region, where there is nature conservation, as well as the provision of basic things for people, for companies, as well as tourism. This is maybe a very nice, good example of how all of the problems can be removed by a great solution, and that will improve the life of the people. We have big visions in terms of education. The PSK has long-term been developed in terms of people, basically brains, if I can put it this way. But these brains are escaping our region. They are going to the west of the country, or even to other countries. It is not a bad thing. It's a good thing if they come back and if they bring their experience to develop their own home region. But for this, of course, the Catching Up Regions initiative is very good. The component of education, where we want to draw finances in order to be able to develop SMEs, which then through dual education will accept students, our students, into their companies and their factories, who can learn skills that are necessary for the labor market, and can find good employment after they graduate. Maybe another good thing to mention is the finances, because we are talking about not small amounts, which are extremely necessary for the development of our region. When we talk about education, we have in 3 stages of the Catching Up Regions initiative 62 million euros. This money can, in terms of the reconstruction of the buildings, the technologies provided really help to such an extent that a student who graduates from high school will be prepared for real life, for their real professional life. In terms of water and sanitation in the Snina district, as I mentioned, there should be 40 million euros going there. Poloniny Trail, this is a very significant point which could really help the development in this region of the district of Snina, can help develop tourism. Here we have planned to draw 25 million euros. Marginalized groups. We have 6 municipalities where we could where we want to improve the situation by waste collections places, infrastructure, water, sanitation for the marginalized Roma communities, so that they have the basic premise for a decent life. We cannot wonder that when a child from such a community comes to primary school, they have absolutely no experience with using water and water closets. And we want to improve this. We want to ensure that these people have access to these basic things. SMEs, here we want to invest 7.5 million euros. And the GIS data, which will be publicly available for people, for 1 million euro. And we are talking about maybe 150 million euros together within the period of a few years. And this money is not for the sake of getting the money. There's an idea behind it that we want to use to develop the region. And this is all based on analyses, statistics, long discussions with experts from the World Bank as well as the European Commission, and the finances that we get, we aim to spend responsibly and reasonably. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to thank you again for the 3 years that we have been in this Catching Up Regions initiative. I am convinced that this cooperation can and will help develop not only the Prešov self-governing region, but also the Banská Bystrica region, where we are currently, as well as the Košice region, which has also entered into this initiative. Thank you very much, and I hope we will have a fruitful discussion.
Very much. Thank you, Mr. Lunter. Thank you, Mr. Majerský, for your reassuring words about the initiative and your strong commitment to this initiative. I would like to consider your involvement as key figures and drivers of regional development for the success of the Catching Up Regions initiative. So thank you very much. And right now I would like to present and introduce the keynote speeches of Deputy Prime Minister Mrs. Veronika Remišová, followed by the introductory words of Mrs. Commissioner for Cohesion and Reforms, Mrs. Ferreira, followed by Anna Bjerde, the Vice President for Europe and Central Asia of the World Bank, which is a key partner of the initiative, and finally with the introductory remarks by Galline Vincelette, Country Director for the European Union. So I would like to give the word now to Mrs. Vice Prime Minister, Mrs. Remišová.
Thank you very much, dear Ms. Commissioner, dear presidents of the self-governing regions, the representatives of the World Bank, dear guests. First of all, I would like to express my huge thanks to everybody who is here, to the partners for the work they have done within this initiative, as well as for organizing this beautiful conference. I'm very honored that I can be here, and I'm very happy that we can meet each other in person after a series of online meetings. It's very nice to see you all in person. I hope that this support, as well as the initiative itself, will continue in the next few years, because I can see a huge added value for Slovakia. And I am very happy that this reinforced cooperation at the local, regional, national and European level will continue. The Ministry of Investment, Regional Development and Informatization considers the Curie initiative as a unique opportunity to strengthen the growth of the competition, ability to compete of our regions, and bring new opportunities for our citizens. That's why we decided at the ministry that we want to strengthen the role of the national coordinator, and we've created a specific catching up team whose goal is to strengthen our presence directly in the regions so that we can better understand the needs and the visions of these regions. We consider it extremely crucial for the projects to be successful, for the projects to be also well prepared, because this is key for identifying the intents of the projects. Please allow me to say what catching up regions are specific in. Catching up regions are facing multiple challenges. It's never a single problem. It's a series of several challenges. And when you look, for example, at the GDP, as the president of the Present Self-Governing Region mentioned, these regions usually have among the lowest GDPs within the country. Another big structural problem is the rates of unemployment, where consistently in these regions, these rates have been highest. Also, young people are often unemployed. Usually in Slovakia, young people do not have a problem to get employed, but catching up regions are an exception to this, where we have the highest rates of unemployed people between 15 and 24 years old. There is a huge risk of poverty. In Banská Bystrica self-governing regions, it's almost 20%. Human capital, demography, these regions are facing some of the biggest leaving of citizens from the regions, and I think that human capital, it is essential that people stay in their regions, because who should build the regions if not the people who have the skills to do that in their home region? A huge component, very, very important component is the MRC component, because according to the Atlas of Roma Communities, these regions have the highest proportion of Roma communities. And for example, in the BBSK, there are 266 marginalized Roma communities. If we compare it, for example, to Nitra, there's only 134. Another specific problem, which has been mentioned today by the president of PSK, is the access to water. It is unthinkable that in the 21st century, almost 20% of our citizens do not have access to drinkable water. This is a problem that has to be solved, and the same goes for sanitation in these areas. And for each of these problems, because as I said, we cannot solve just one problem and think that that will solve the whole problem of the catching up regions. If we want to solve the problem of catching up regions, the problems of catching up regions, we have to look at all of them together through various components. And the projects which are being implemented in these regions react to this situation. I have to say that I'm very happy that in this programming period we can see tangible results, and when I say this programming region, I mean 2014 to 2020, and these are results that are, for example, successful project intents and successful projects within calls that were focused on catching up regions. And I think that it is very important that we have opened such calls, for example, in the area of human resources, but we will also open these calls in the next one.
Out of the projects implemented in Prešov region, I very positively perceive the progress in the project of integrated education, where part of packages went to integrated schools as their applications for funding have been approved. Huge added value in GeoPortal, which succeeded in the call held by my ministry. A successful project in Banská Bystrica region, in the social services area, focusing on services to the elderly, to senior people, innovation ecosystem, support to innovation ecosystem, and innovation vouchers, which was launched last week. I only mentioned a couple of examples. However, there have been more successful projects and different components, and they have the potential to significantly improve the life of inhabitants. Therefore, in our opinion, from the viewpoint of managing of EU funds, the project preparation is extremely important. As you could see in the previous programming periods, besides other structural issues I'm not going to mention, one of the main difficulties was shortage or lack of high quality preparation of projects. This is where the process was failing. So we would like to help with the new instrument REACT. Thanks to the European Commission, there are funds for project preparation so that you can prepare projects which have the potential to be implemented in your free regions, prepare them now, and then in the new programming period from the new OP Slovakia, those projects could be basically immediately implemented. I also find it crucially important to integrate outputs of Catching Up Regions initiative into investment plans for every self-governing region. And due to multi-sectoral nature of the outcomes of the initiative, we are working on their horizontal integration in all political policy objectives after 2020, so that they could be funded cross-sectionally. It also contributes to integration of territorial strategies, which is the new paradigm for taking decisions about money in regions, and form an important component of that. We launched a series of meetings with the World Bank in order to reflect the results into the new programming period, and we intend to continue in those meetings during the summer. Therefore, it will be crucially important to get information from the territory, sort them out, and subsequently determine relevant activities which have the best potential to bring benefits to the regions and cities. I believe this step will help us launch the new programming period faster. Also, thanks to high quality project preparation, we will be prepared to start spending for reasonable projects that will help our inhabitants in catching up regions and lagging regions. And I would like to say again, thank you very much, Ms. Commissioner, for joining us today. This is a beautiful place in Slovakia, in a catching up region with a huge potential for tourism. Every catching up region has its specific features. It's unique by its cultural heritage, by its country. So I will be more than pleased to invite you to Slovakia again. And let me wish you productive discussion, fruitful discussion during the conference, a lot of success. Good luck to regions in performing goals of Catching Up initiative. It's a valuable initiative, and I believe it will contribute to reduction of differences among regions. Thank you.
Madam Commissioner, floor is yours.
Thanks very much. Well, thank you very much for your kind words, for the kind words also, and the information that thank you, that I got in this visit. It is, in fact, my first official visit after the pandemic. And I also would like to share with you this happiness of seeing real people, being together, discussing together what we can do for the better future of our citizens. So, Deputy Prime Minister, Presidents of the region, and the dear representatives of the World Bank, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues that are accompanying us. In fact, we heard from the experts, from the people that live here, that work here, and we have seen where the problems are, but also I take from here a very strong sign of hope. Hope that when we identify the problems, we are halfway done to solve them. And here we have experienced people, and I thank you for sharing also your personal experience. You have come from a very successful life, a lot of you, to help your region. And this is something that we really want to underline because it is the right move
And once you have this energy, this power, this leadership, this vision, we get another sense of using taxpayers' money to help the convergence of the most backward regions and the most backward areas of our countries and of our Europe. And success of the weakest region is the success of Europe. Wherever this weakest region is, wherever this weakest person is, this is how we measure our common success. And in fact, we are living through extraordinary times. The pandemic is a systemic impact, a systemic shock that affected Europe and the entire world. This crisis was an accelerator of several trends, like digitalization, which is a positive one, but it was also a kind of an X-ray on our societies, exposing all the vulnerabilities and aggravating some of the pre-existing differences. I often say that when you put a pressure on a chain, it's the weakest link that breaks. And so the Catching Up Regions initiative was already a very relevant initiative before the pandemic, because Europe doesn't exist if the catching up is not there, but it became even more relevant after this pandemic. Yes, I can praise it without any problem, as I was not the only one or the one that initiated it. It came from before me. But very quickly I became very, very aware of the content, of the value it contained, of how it was coming close to the ground, of how it was engaging the local elements with the support of the central government. Well, this initiative, in fact, became even more critical or more important in a context of economic crisis, where we need to avoid the risks of an asymmetric impact of our countries and of our regions. In Slovakia, you have seen this, for example, in the construction sector, in tourism, in hospitality sectors, and in the cultural and creative industries. The drop of these activities was brutal, here and elsewhere. We need to avoid the risk of what we call a V-shaped recovery. A recovery that is V for some, is a K1 for others. So part of the sectors grow, other sectors decrease. Where some sectors, some regions rebound faster than others. Therefore, from the outset, let me state my commitment to this initiative and my willingness to continue and to improve it, drawing lessons from yours and other regions. Let me also express my gratitude to the Slovak authorities for hosting us in this wonderful, beautiful, yes, it's a bit of a paradise. I mean, this beautiful setting of the Low Tatras. And I have not, in fact, been traveling as much as I wished lately, but I couldn't have chosen a better place to come when coming back into action. The Catching Up Regions initiative assesses the factors that hold regional growth back, what holds investment back, and it provides recommendations and assistance to how you can unlock their growth potential. In Slovakia, the achievements of your Catching Up Regions already include, and the President and also you, Vice Prime Minister, you have been very clear in stating some of these examples. I would just to underline how important it is, the investment in vocational education and training schools, along with links to business, because this is, I mean, dealing with the quality of our institutions and the quality of our workforce and our citizens. Local development, especially the marginalized Roma communities, and you as well as other countries in Europe, you have got really to address this issue, because it is, a requirement from the treaties and also from the funds. Sustainable tourism projects and setting up information systems which provided us with valuable information during also the pandemic. These positive impacts are heartening. They need now to be consolidated, embedded in long-term transformational strategies, using the opportunities opened up by the European Union support and by the European response to the crisis. Now it is the time to prepare the recovery. Now it is the time also to build back better. We face the twin challenge, of course, of the green and digital revolution, and we must be prepared. Today, I want to speak about 3 forms of preparation for a better future, just to leave you with some food for thought. Preparing the recovery. First, I would like to underline that Europe is making a significant investment to stimulate a sound and robust recovery. It will invest for the overall Europe in the next years around 2 trillion euros. This is a big, big figure. It's something that never happened before. From our multi-annual budget and what we call the Next Generation Initiative. So going to the markets and borrowing, the Commission is borrowing to give grants and to give loans to member states. And what for? In fact, to give these member states the means to recover in a way that it is more future-oriented, but also more cohesive from a regional, geographical perspective, from a perspective that is convergence across member states, but also convergence within member states. And it's not just a regional convergence, it's a social convergence. So it is absolutely against everything to exclude a significant part of the society from this convergence procedure. For Slovakia, this represents 6.5 billion euros for the Recovery and Resilience Plan that you were one of the first to have the signature from the Commission. Now we wait for the confirmation from the Council that will take a couple of weeks. On top of 13.2 billion euros under cohesion policy. This amounts to over 3,600 euros of investment for every woman, man and child in Slovakia. And it represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity. It's an historical opportunity. Last week, the Commission completed the assessment of the Slovak Recovery and Resilience Plan, I just mentioned it, and proposed it for approval to the Council. I particularly welcome that in that plan, you, the Slovak government, in close connection with the population and the representatives, you have proposed it on basic lines. 1/3 will be invested in combating climate change, 23% on healthcare, 17% on effective government, including digitization, 14% on education, and 11% on research and innovation. These are the reasons why the program was approved, because it focused on the right targets. Cohesion programs are still in preparation, but they are, as we just mentioned, quite robust. But around a half of cohesion policy across Europe will focus, of course, again, on green and digital transition, because that is the future. And for several member states, such as Slovakia, or also the Czech Republic, they represent more than a double of their recovery and resilience plans envelopes. This is important because the green and digital revolution will fundamentally change every region. It will transform many different industries, from energy to transport, from agriculture to building management. It is a brutal capacity or need for investment, public and private investment. So it is a trigger for development. A particular concern is, in fact, in this context, those regions which depend on carbon-intensive industries or on coal mining. These regions will face a particularly demanding transition. And for such regions in Slovakia, we have set aside 459 million euros of European investment under the Just Transition Fund. Yesterday, I visited one of such regions, the coal mining Upper Nitra region. Transformation plan is in preparation. I was very, very glad to see, again, in that area, the energy and the ideas that are already breathing there. And there are concrete steps to adapt buildings, businesses, and above all, the workforce. And the plan has been subject and is being subject of wide stakeholders consultation, and that is a very important element. It's to have this relationship between central coordination and local engagement and local dialogue. Now, when it comes to the regional needs, this brings me to a broader observation, and it is my second point. No two regions are alike, and each will require different investments tailored to their situation. I am particularly concerned at growing levels of disparity within member states. And in recent years, Slovakia has been one of the fastest growing economies in Europe. This impressive catch-up has been fueled by foreign direct investments, not only but also, most of which went to automotive electronics manufacturing. Catch-up at the national level is highly welcomed, of course, but it has yet to spread into all regions, as you and the other president were mentioning. Bratislava region has more than 4 times the GDP per head of the Northeast region of Prešov. And it is not just GDP. The gap is reflected in many other indicators, from social indicators such as housing or healthcare to infrastructure gaps. So the need to reduce regional disparities is more important than ever. And I know that the government is attentive to it, that the regions are attentive to it. The money is there, so let's do it. In fact, we need to reduce these regional disparities, and this has become more important than ever. As we draw up the new cohesion programs, I am looking forward to proposals which put balanced development as the heart of the programs. I also look forward to seeing the results of full consultations with partners in the regions, as we are doing now, and in the municipalities. In rebalancing the territory, let us remember of the opportunities such as the rise of teleworking, and this can enable even smaller centers to compete on equal footing with larger, more successful centers. But this strategy still requires investment in everything from enterprise to public services and infrastructure, especially digital infrastructure. New sources of growth need to be catalysts for convergence and not new factors of divide. And there is a risk, particularly when you use digital, if we don't spread the network and if you don't have the capacity building of the different actors that theoretically benefit from it. And I move into capacity building because, in fact, as you correctly mentioned, Madam Vice Prime Minister, you mentioned the need to have good projects, to create capacity, to have good institutions. And to manage these many and varied investments, public administration will require new skill sets and stronger capacity. And this is, in fact, my third point. We must build the skills and capacity of public entities, support for the design, documentation, implementation of a solid project pipeline. And I know how relevant the World Bank can be in that endeavor. Streamlining processes, training and supporting staff in the skills needed to prepare and implement these projects. This capacity needs to be in place at every level, including the regional and the local level. To ensure the success of our investments, we have got to create a network of competence, of credibility, of transparency, and I think this is the moment to do it. This success will be the sum, in fact, of the capacity of the local authorities and of local civil engagement. The administration has to work hand in hand with social partners and civil society to develop and implement projects. Local development needs to be addressed under the new policy objective of cohesion policy, which is Europe closer to citizens. This gives space for local collaborations with a broad range of local communities and stakeholders. The work can be inspired by the results showcased today from the Prešov region and the Banská Bystrá region, who are good examples of such local development. All this work can also be supported by the technical support instrument. You just mentioned the REACT source, the technical support instrument which provides expertise and exchange of experience to build the capacity of public administration. In conclusion, as we look to the future, I see a lot of opportunities. The opportunities of a strong recovery, fueled by exceptional historical levels of European investment. The opportunity of a successful transformation to a carbon neutral economy and the digital age. And most of all, the opportunity to make sure that all regions benefit from the recovery, that all regions benefit from the green and digital economy, and that no region is left behind. This requires investment, requires work. Most of all, it will require a level of capacity and expertise and a lot of political engagement and political will at the central, at the regional, and at the local level. The regions we are examining today show it can be done, that it is possible in a short time to build capacity and expertise. Europe and the World Bank offered you the tools, and Slovakian programs showed that they can do the job. And so I am confident that as Europe offers more investment and a wider range of tools, you will once more prove yourselves capable of this job. As masters, craft workers, I urge you to learn from each other and to progress quickly but steadily into a better life for all your citizens, wherever they are located, wherever they were born, no matter, in particular for children, in which family, in which jurisdiction, in which place they happened to be born. We don't choose where we are born. We don't choose very often who you are. So we have got this responsibility because Europe is based on values, and these values, the central value is the respect for the human being, whoever, whatever you are. So thank you very much. And this is the opening of a dialogue that will go on and will be in touch for the progress of all the regions, all the people in Europe. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the inspiring words. And now I'm not sure if we have the technical access to the online presence of the World Bank, or would you like to take the floor? Please. Thank you very much.
A little bit. Yeah, thank you very much. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for this beautiful place, for being here and being being able to be part of this final conference of the Catching Up Region Initiative here to Slovakia. Unfortunately, we couldn't see the greetings from Anna Bjerde. Actually, I'm seeing that we can. So maybe, why don't I pause? We'll see the greeting of our Vice President for the Europe and Central Asia region, and I'll come back to continue. Yeah? We can do that?
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to address the final conference of the Catching Up Regions 2 initiative, also referred to as CURRY. I would like to express special thanks to the supporters of the CURRY initiative for your leadership and commitment. Mrs. Ferreira, it is my pleasure to address the final conference of the Catching Up Regions 2 initiative, also referred to as CURRY. I would like to express special thanks to the supporters of the CURRY initiative for your leadership and commitment. Mrs. Ferreira and the European Commission, Minister Remišová and the Ministry of Investments, Regional Development and Information, as well as the other partner ministries. Many thanks also to the final conference of the Catching Up Regions 2 initiative, also referred to as CURRY. I would like to express special thanks to the supporters of the CURRY initiative for your leadership and commitment. Mrs. Ferreira and the European Commission, Minister Remišová and the Ministry of Investments, Regional Development and Information, as well as the other partner ministries. Many thanks also to the regions of Prešov and Banská Bystrica for championing this work and connecting it to $254 million in investments critical for change on the ground. We look forward to learning more about the results this investment has generated. The Catching Up Regions initiative is important for Slovakia, it is important for Europe, and it is important for countries across the world as it takes on the common challenges of unequal development and seeks to find realistic and practical solutions. Drawing on our global experience, the World Bank has supported and contributed to CURRY in areas such as enhancing secondary vocational education, improving integration of marginalized Roma, and developing the basic environmental infrastructure in sparsely populated areas of Slovakia. But we are also here to learn from your experience and, as a global development institution, to share your work with other countries and regions faced with similar challenges. Slovakia has experienced strong economic growth in the past few years, which has translated into jobs and opportunities for many citizens. But not all places and people have benefited equally. And it is very encouraging to see the government continuing commitment to creating opportunities for those at risk of being left behind. This is the essence of the Catching Up Regions initiative, with its very special focus on regions experiencing demographic decline as well as aging populations. These regions share common challenges such as low productivity, low income levels, and higher poverty rates than the rest of the country, in part reflecting the importance of addressing human capital challenges in these regions. The Prešov and Banská Bystrica regions are not strangers to these challenges. So the key question is, how can we help these catching up regions? Today, we will hear lessons learned from CURRY. At the heart of what has worked is building local capacity, complemented by making public investments more strategic to improve the utilization and results of EU funds. Prešov and Banská Bystrica have been able to successfully address growth challenges and deliver change on the ground. One good example is in improving basic infrastructure, such as in sanitation, roads, and bicycle paths. Another area of a good example is the investments in the quality of secondary vocational education to improve opportunities for young people. Also, the improved tech transfer and cooperation between companies and research institutions is promising and is expected to create both new jobs as well as new industries. The Curry is also contributing to the important agenda on greening the economy. For example, improved energy efficiency in public buildings in the Prešov region is helping the Slovak Republic meet its energy policy commitments and is leading to lower expenditures on energy, more efficient use of public resources, and lower emissions. Finally, a pilot is supporting municipalities with the challenges of integrating marginalized Roma communities. This has already led to new ideas on how to improve living conditions for some of the poorest and most vulnerable citizens. We look forward to contributing to this important event, learning from your rich experience, sharing it with our partners across the globe, and continuing the partnership around curry in the context of the most recently added region, Košice. All the best wishes for a very successful conference, and thank you.
Well, I'm glad that really worked because Anna regrets not to be here with us today. But I do want to join her in extending our appreciations for being partners of the regions, the 3 regions in Slovakia, partners of the central government, and very importantly, partners of the European Commission. So thank you very much for this. I want to make a few remarks just to give you a sense what the initiative has achieved and what is ahead of it. The initiative's reach has been impressive. It covers 3 regions with population of about 2.2 million people, which, as we calculated last night at the dinner table, is about 45% or so of the population in Slovakia. Its reach is tremendous. It has been able to go to 80 towns and municipalities. It has worked in 137 schools across Prešov and Banska Bystrica region. It has worked in 28 municipalities on support on water and sanitation issues. 12 towns participated in the Roma integration component. And as a whole, again, it had touched in some ways over 2 million people in Slovakia. But to deliver on these objectives, the initiative has worked on at least 8 components. These include the vocational education and training systems, integration of Roma communities, synergies between industry and research, regional and local public transport, geographic information system for regional development, integrated elders care, tourism development, and last but not least, water and sanitation infrastructure in remote area. You see this array of sectors or of society, of issues. It actually speaks to the complexity of tackling regional development issues. And today we are gathered to celebrate some of the successes that we have seen today and to showcase and to learn from the 2 years of work in Slovakia. I want to share with you 3 examples that can perhaps give a little bit of substance of how the initiative works and what the initiative has brought about. First, on vocational education and training. The initiative set up assurance framework and systems for improving secondary school in this sector, vocational education and training, in the Prešov region. We heard that from the president. At the same time, it helped optimize the system of regional secondary schools networks and prepared future capital investment. These interventions, from analyzing what are the needs on the labor markets, what is the network, and also where the gaps in investment are, is really in the core of the interventions. In the Banska Bystrica region, we started by scoping out the labor market's needs. And what we found is that there is quite a lot of discrepancy between the skills needed and the skills supplied. So again, big lessons to be drawn from vocational education training of school graduates. And again, these are issues not only for the two regions, Banska Bystrica and Prešov, but these are issues that are common for other regions in the European Union. The lessons learned is what is extremely valuable. They inform and can inform both central government and other regions to respond to similar constraints and similar challenges. Likewise, a model of integrated investment in these vocational education and training schools can be replicated to other regions in Slovakia and can inform the national reform. The second example I would like to share with you relates to the Roma community. The integration of Roma community is central for the mission of the World Bank in Europe. We know it is an important development challenge here in Croatia, as well as in other countries, because of low service levels, because of poor housing, which characterize the Roma communities. Here, what the initiative has done is that it has helped strengthen the capacity of 12 municipalities to improve basic service standards. It did this by piloting an integrated, again, approach to municipal infrastructure development funded by the European Structural and Investment Funds. The approach included revisiting also existing local development plans so that it can find these opportunities of investment and design this investment, but also prepare the municipalities to embark on these activities going forward. So build capacity, how to identify these gaps and how to pursue investment. This is for 12 communities, and just recently, in January 2021, two other regions, Košice and Banska Bystrica, also decided to take part. So we look forward to their integration of Roma community and some specific results in the future. The third example I would like to draw your attention to has to do with digitalized public transport in the Banska Bystrica region. There, what we did is to understand the travel behavior and the needs of residents and various and visitors in the region. We ran a study, we ran a survey, so that then we can understand what is their skill level in using mobile technologies. This then helped the region design a digital mobility data architecture and established an integrated public transport system authority at the regional level so that it can enhance the competitiveness of public transport and at the same time achieve environmental goals and reduce the footprint of a dirtier type of transportation activities. The next phase of this work will actually see actual investments in the digitalization of related infrastructure. So we are talking about something like 2,600 stations, buses, and bus stops that can benefit from this initiative and from this part of the initiative. So these three examples are really three of many. And I hope the workshops later in the day will be a real opportunities to unpack these 8 areas that I spoke about earlier, to show what has worked, but also to show what has not worked, to learn lessons and to see how they can be replicated within the 3 regions, but also outside of them. And before I close, I do want to bring your attention to few numbers. And these numbers relate to the resource mobilization of the initiative. It's good that we have studied, it's good that we have identified gaps in regional development, but as the Commissioner herself pointed out, now that the resources are there, putting them in good use is what will really unlock the recovery from the pandemic, but also the economic development in each and every one of these regions. So, in Slovakia, the Catching-up Region Initiative thus far has attracted about 2,021 million euro in investment. Of this investment, 75 million is going to 13 integrated vocational education and training schools projects. About 12 million is going for the integration of the Roma communities through the pilots. Another 8 million are expected to come later in the year. The integrated elderly care model, which the city of Tornala and 13 other municipalities developed, is also being turned into a 6 million euro investment. And this would cover both services for the elderly as well as related infrastructure. And we heard about the eco-path, the cycling path in the Polonini National Park. This is also well underway with 2 of the first segments of 31 kilometers, and the path, from what I'm told, is about 90 kilometers, are already well underway of being built. So this is great. What is, again, really great is the connection between identifying the issues, understanding ways to address them, but also matching this with investment and its funds so that we can make difference on the ground. Going forward, and this is in conclusion, we would be delighted to continue to be part of the Catching Up region initiatives here in Slovakia, as well in some of the other European countries where we have worked. We have greatly appreciated the work and the partnership with the local authorities of the 3 regions, as well as of the central government. And the partnership of the European Commission with the bank is really quintessential in showing how both institutions share a vision to serve the underserved, be it regions, be it communities, be it individuals. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the afternoon.
Thank you very much. We have heard the keynote speeches from the 4 crucial elements of the Catching Up Regions initiative. First of all, the regions themselves, which are, of course, the most integrated part of this initiative. The European Commission, which helped us to make this initiative happen and to make it possible, which we are very grateful, and of course we would like to see continuity in Slovakia for this initiative. Then, of course, the World Bank, which is providing valuable technical assistance, which is an absolutely inevitable part for the success of regional development, not only in Slovakia, but also in other member states. And last but not least, also from the Ministry of Investments, Regional Development and Informatization, which I'm also representing here, and I'm really glad to tell you that for this initiative we have the highest political support in our ministry, in our country. But also I would like to reassure you that my team in the ministry is also very much dedicated to this initiative, which we consider as a priority program for regional development in these 3 particular regions. So we have been working a lot on establishing the team and also facilitating and coordinating the activities which are involved in this Catching Up Regions initiative. So thank you very much for this first introductory and keynote round, and I would like to invite you now for a coffee break and a press conference next door. Thank you.
me too, I guess, at least during this.
Prajem vám všetkým.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first panel discussion on the topic of integrated approach to regional development. Our guests are going to deliberate on the ways to make the regional policy more efficient. I would like to welcome Mr. Fabrizio Zarcone as the chairman, the country manager for Bulgaria, the Czech Republic and Slovakia of the World Bank. Vítajte, pán Zarcone, sme veľmi rádi, že tu dnes s vami môžete byť. I would also like to welcome our panelists. We have Mr. Erik Unterwoods-Arfa, the Director of DG Regio of the European Commission. Welcome. Mr. Jan Ridzoň, Director General of the Section for Operational Program Slovakia from the Ministry of Investment, Regional Development and Informatization of the Slovak Republic. Welcome. Mr. Erik Beneš, Director of European Projects Coordination Unit of ITI Plzeň in the Czech Republic. Mr. Paul Chris, the lead urban specialist of the World Bank. Ms. Martina Slivková, Director of the Regional Development Section of Prešov Self-Governing Region. And last but not least, we also have with us Ms. Zuzana Lafersová, the Director of the Regional Development and Tourism Section of Banská Bystrica Self-Governing Region. Ladies, welcome. Thank you very much for your attention for now, and now I would like to pass the floor on to Mr. Zarcone. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I have too many things on my face. Yes, my name is Fabrizio Zarcone. I'm the country manager for Slovakia, the Czech Republic, and Bulgaria. And it's a real pleasure to be here today with this distinguished panel. We have bigger plans, frankly, on the panel, but unfortunately we had to reduce a bit the timing in order for all of us to be on time for our lunch. Our distinguished guests have been introduced already, so the panel is really a wonderful opportunity to reflect a bit more on the cohesion policy, on an integrated approach to regional development and the role of the programming, the new programming period of the ESIF. So before I really pass the floor to our guests, let me tell you a couple of things exactly on these two elements. The cohesion policy, the role of the cohesion policy, and how that affects convergence, and how the integrated approach to development seems to be one of the solutions to regional development, to the reduction in disparities. The cohesion policy has been and is a wonderful instrument for catching up and to promote development in many regions across Europe. We are talking about 50 billion euros per year that are strengthening the development of our regions. Some of our regions use the resources better than others, and we have numerous success stories in terms of absorption capacity really across Europe. Other regions have been less active, fortunate. Sometimes I don't know what kind of word to use, but clearly there are situations that are in strong need of improvement, and Slovakia with the 37% absorption is one of those. My own country doesn't shine too much, so either. But we are confident that the next operational program and dedication that many teams in ministries and other institutions have put will really strengthen it. The other element is the convergence, which is a bit a story of how the funds of the cohesion policy are used. And there are, again, many successful stories across Europe. And when we think about Bratislava, specifically being the 9th richest region in Europe, it's an amazing story of development, of success. But when we look at the second, for example, at the second region in Slovakia, Trnava, we see that it's only at 50% of the levels of Bratislava, and if we look at Prešov, we're at 25%. So, and this is a bit to echo the words of the commissioner earlier. So, in such a situation, what solutions can we find together? And I think that the integrated approach to development can be a bit of an answer to that. So with this in mind, let me ask a question to all our panelists. So, and it exactly reflects my earlier words on the integrated approach to regional development. Do you think that it has been applied across Slovakia? It seems that it hasn't been applied thoroughly and fully. What are the obstacles in your view? And also, if you could highlight 2-3 examples of positive outcomes stemming from the Curie initiative that really contributes to the integrated regional development of these catching up regions. I'll stop here, and maybe Eric, would you like to start?
Yeah, so thank you, and I take off my mask and I take the mic. And let me also say a few words generally before I come to the specific issues. First, I think it's really the first time that we meet each other, and I think many colleagues here I do know, and I have missed them, and I think seeing them in the video screen is not the same as being here, and therefore I think we also have a little bit of a delay because everyone wanted to talk to the colleagues around during the coffee break, but this is also one of the benefits of being physically here in your wonderful region. And I think it's not so many times that I have worn a tie over the last 15 months, so here again we are dressed up as almost as it was before, but it is not fully as before, and I think we have seen this, and I very much appreciate actually the sign here, Next Generation EU, which really provides a lot of additional funds to the issue of Fabrizio, which you have said. Now, the integrated approach, I think it's something which we, of course, have much more focused now in the 14-20 funding period. And here again, the 14-20 funding period is not over yet. We have just recently adopted a program, a special program to assist the regions which are the most hit by the pandemic, React EU. And this is also part of the former funding period. But we have learned a few lessons, and therefore I think it's important also to digest these lessons from the Curie initiative. One is this new approach, of course, as every new approach, takes some time to develop. And I think here the issue is about two things, CC, capacity and complexity. And I think we have to think about for the next funding period, which is starting in a few months, depending on the negotiations progress, how we can reduce on one hand the complexity, but also enhance the capacity. And when I'm talking about capacity, I would like to come to the Curie initiative, because one of the main reasons why we started it, and I think the Deputy Prime Minister, the Commissioner and Galline already indicated all the issues with regions which are and need to catch up. Low unemployment, low employment, GDP, lack of adequate possibilities, and of course marginal communities. And here we have learned a few lessons, and I would like to go beyond Slovakia, because 4 years ago we actually were in a similar conference not so far away in Rzeszów, in Poland, in Podkarpacie, where we had a conference explaining together with the colleagues here from the World Bank what we have done and where we want to go. And I think there were a few lessons already very prominent. And one lesson for me is there's no one-size-fits-all. We have heard the 3 main areas for Slovakia, just buzzwords. I'm not going to repeat what has been explained. Vocational educational training, marginalized communities. Okay, in Poland there is no issue with marginalized communities, and the issue about tourism, and I think this is also different in Poland. But in Poland very much we focused also on the match between academia and the business needs at the university level. So we funded technology transfer centers, really falling into this and filling this gap, the gap between universities and businesses. The second one, I think, which is important to underline here, also the issue about reducing the barriers for businesses. This is not necessarily the issue in Slovakia here. The issue is here to make the best use of the regions here. We have seen the 3 regions and we have heard about the challenges here. Certainly better integration, marginalized communities, but also about tourism. And here I would like to finish. The tourism maybe now has a bigger chance, because quite many people will not in the next few years, maybe they don't want to travel where they have to wear masks for 15 hours in the plane. Who knows how this is going to develop, but also because I think there's a development, and this is what I want to finish here, when it comes to the vocation also of the next generation EU to be more greener. So I assume that actually traveling by plane will be more expensive, and how the people would possibly appreciate to make vacation, to go on vacation, but actually to be in Europe. The Europe has mountains, has beaches, has cities, and therefore that is a possibility for really having sustainable tourism. And this is the last word I know about, and it's not just about bicycling. Nature is not necessarily bicycling. Nature is actually appreciating the nature around you, and I think we have to protect this asset. So this is all I would like to say. I know possibly I was too long, but in any case, it's also from my experience from the Cathing-up. No size fits all, and nobody should left behind. These are the 2 slogans which I would like you to take forward.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Thank you, Eric. And in order to be short and efficient, I guess I could elaborate a bit on 3 keywords. First, a long-term vision. Second, the public administration reform. And third, cooperation instead of competition. Just to explain a bit why. First, have you ever heard any discussion in our country, in Slovakia, about 2100 vision of the Slovak Republic? It's not that far away. We are talking about 79 years only. Or have you ever heard about 2050 vision of the Slovak Republic? No. It's our job. It's our homework. Why? Why to talk? Why to elaborate 2100 vision? Because having this on place, we all can be much more efficient on prioritization. I mean, just to prepare strategies on what is the best in which region. So once again, a long-term vision. Second, the public administration reform, and I guess we all are aware that some 15 or more years ago, the public administration reform was not finished. This job is not finished yet. In other words, or what is behind that? We are talking about strong competencies of self-governing regions and cities, municipalities, whereby you are not equipped with sufficient budget or funds, where there might be a risk when, and there is a risk, which we are aware of, when managing the integrated approach, because some municipalities, some regions might take a higher risk compared to your budgets. So we consider this also to be one of the obstacles why, as you, Eric, mentioned, we are lagging behind in using this very interesting and efficient approach. And lastly, the cooperation instead of competition. And I guess here I would like to highlight what Madam Commissioner mentioned today. We should not compete each other among 8 self-governing regions, and let's focus on tailored investments. In other words, some regions are much better equipped for common agricultural policy subsidies, for example. Let's say for for agriculture, some regions are better equipped for tourism, which is natural, and some for industries or manufacturing. So I guess, and having a long-term vision, we should improve our cooperation and reduce our competition among regions. Secondly, and here I would like to conclude, of course, and thank you, Fabrizio, for tabling the examples. I mean, what examples are or might be the best ones for the future when it comes to catching up regions. Probably a very short answer to you. We are not thinking whether yes or no in the 21-27 period. I'm talking about the operational program 21-27. We are just considering how to approach it. And I guess this is good to mention in the beginning. And secondly, I would only mention definitely the Roma communities integration, definitely the secondary vocational training which will match with the market. I'm talking about healthcare, about social care, I'm talking about tourism, of course, and then, of course, water supply and second and third class roads. So once again, Roma communities integration, secondary vocational training or education, and the basic infrastructure such as water supply and second and third class roads. Sorry for being that long, and I guess I will pass the floor to Eric.
Thank you. Please, Eric.
Dobrý den všem.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have to say that I'm not really that familiar with the situation in Slovakia, but I would like to talk about what it is that we are doing with the ITI as a tool in the Czech Republic. We see it as a great opportunity, if only from the point of view that it's the tool that allows us to really have a very targeted approach in the regions. We can prepare very targeted strategies. We can prioritize the key areas and the key issues, and it gives us a good set or toolkit for the tools that we can use to address the issues identified. Obviously, the resources are always limited, but we can actually really focus on the most pressing problems in terms of the social stability of the region or the areas that can actually facilitate the promotion and the growth in the region. We have selected 2 approaches when we are really trying to have a very targeted approach to a limited location that we try to improve and increase in terms of the quality of life. And we are also trying to focus on the areas where we can really make a difference and solve the problems, at least partially. As an example, I can show you, or I can mention the case when we tried to link the R&D infrastructure with the transportation and technological infrastructure. And within one center, we actually established the R&D center or park that was linked to the local university. And as a city, we also linked it with the tram line, where we actually had the connection hub built for the public transportation. Another systemic solution that I can mention refers to the support of jobs and the labor force. Because if we want to improve the quality of life in our regions, we need to do something in this area as well. So we focused on the VT education, especially the technical education. We focused on bridging the gaps between the elementary, secondary, and university education. And, because we can't really disperse our money too much, so we selected technical education as the sphere into which we are going to channel the funds mostly. The ITI as a tool for us is a great opportunity to bring about the real change. And that's why we use the first period as sort of a pilot period. And now we are basically working already based on the experience, based on the lessons learned from this first period. And with this, I would like to thank my colleagues who are working on the preparation and drafting of the new programming period, because we are really trying to utilize and capitalize on the lessons learned when drafting the new periods and the operation programs for the new programming period, so that they allow to really target the real problems and the major problems. I think ITI is being used quite successfully in the Czech Republic, because even the regions really start seeing it as a very efficient and effective tool. And we had 7 ITI in the previous and current programming period. Now we already have 13 of them. So we are trying to really use this instrument more and more, and we can see the real difference. As my 4 speakers and the Madam Commissioner mentioned, obviously we are working in a very varied environment. While in Plzeň we are facing certain set of problems. For example, in Ostrava, they have completely different, most pressing problems. So as my 4 speakers have said, there's no one fit-for-all strategy that can be used.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for the view of a practitioner. Please, Paul.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to try not to repeat what the previous speakers has said, in order to leave enough time for the ladies. So I think that the issue of regional development and inclusive approach is a bit basic for me. I think that no country should aim to conduct a cost-benefit analysis on regional development. A country has regions. Some of them are more successful, others are less, but one does not approach it by expecting only financial and economic benefits in the short term. It's an obligation, it's a moral obligation, it's a social obligation of a country to develop its regions. Having said that, it is important to identify what smart development means. It's not just pouring tons of resources that would not benefit the local population. So I don't want to get too much into details because we are short of time, but I think one needs to approach it not only in an economic, but also in a social inclusive way. The second point I want to bring up shortly is that when one does development, one of the biggest questions I found is to identify what belongs to the public sector and what belongs to the private. There is a critical amount of investment that the public sector needs to do in order for the private sector to step in. And if we are talking about Polonini, this is a critical question. Because one needs to bring the basic infrastructure, but one could not run tourism and one cannot run secondary homes for the population in Bratislava that might want to have it. I think that a good model to look at is Sweden and Norway. Sweden and Norway took a leap of faith and invested in Lapland and in the north that is very cold and very remote, and they just said this is our moral obligation and we will do it in a smart way. And private sector came after the public sector put the basic infrastructure in place. There are other places in the world. The United States in the 50s did a federal highway program that eventually benefited. Nobody did the economic benefits on it over a decade. My last point is that I think that regional development needs to come in packages. One cannot just do water, cannot just do schools. It needs to be done in an integrated manner, and I understand funds are scarce, but I also understand that with an improvement in the absorption capacity, hopefully during the next period, you will have much more resources. On Fabrizio's question, I think that examples that I think from my work here over the last 2 years I'm proud of is more the soft aspects, the vocational education, and issues like, you know, just raising the question of Roma communities. Whether we agree on the 3D or not is a different question, but putting it on the table and saying there is an issue is very useful. One sentence of closure, I think that when you deliberate the next phases between all parties, it's important to understand that policy and technical go together. One cannot just talk technical without policy and vice versa. And I think with all humility, the World Bank brings a lot of the ability to bridge these two.
Ďakujem. Rada by som
I would also like to contribute to the discussion, especially offering the regional point of view. I don't want to go back to history to talk about the obstacles and limitations, but let me focus more on how things can be done, even thanks to the Catching Up Regions initiative. In the 3 years that we have been implementing this initiative, we learned how to think in an integrated way, even from the regional point of view. I think that this chart that you can see is perhaps the most important from my point of view. If the EU wants to support the integrated regional approach to development, it is very important that we are united in our stance in our country, so we need to all pull at the same rope at all levels. That means at a national level, at the regional level, and at a local level. If we manage to unify this approach and unite in this approach, I dare say that we are indeed ready to integrate and to develop our regions much better. The reason for this is that we need to utilize the bottom-up approach. Yesterday's evening gives me a great hope because the ministries actually actively sought and asked about our needs, and we informed them about what we see as what we see as the really important needs, even from the point of view of our sub-regions, and that's very important. I think the change of the mindset, us learning how to think in an integrated way, is perhaps the biggest difference and the biggest change that we need to implement. Because if we manage to do that, then we would be able not only to have a pipeline of projects, but we would be able to prioritize the projects which we would basically all agree that are the most crucial and the most critical, even from the point of view of the cohesion policy. I hope that this is something that we would be able to do even before the end of this programming period, and let's keep our fingers crossed for that. And let's hope that in cooperation with the national level, we would be able to prepare it as much as possible. Ďakujem pekne, Martina. A teraz Zuzana. Thank you for the floor. I think my colleague from Prešov-South-Galling region really grasped it very well. I think she named it and nailed it. But let me also add on behalf of the BBSK, during the 2 years that we have been implemented the Catching Up Regions initiative, we have already seen the tangible results, which makes us very happy. And I would like to mention as an example the micro-region of municipalities next to Slana, where we managed to already approve the project of integrated health and social care. And this is also a very good driving force for us as a region that we can use in our relationship with the municipalities to make them more active in trying to increase the level or the living conditions and the level of life for their citizens. We are also trying to use this as an example that we can use to show other sub-regions within our region how things can be done, how things can be approached. We can learn them about processes, and however, we are very well aware of the fact that in order to win them and bring them on our side, we need to win their trust first. And this is a very good tool when we can show how things are working and can be working efficiently and effectively, that can actually bring them to us. So I would like to thank the entire Catching Up Regions team, because I think they have helped our communication and position much.
Thank you very much, Susanna. This is incredible, enriching, particularly because these colleagues here are practitioners, people who are living it every day together with the administration of the regions and at the central level. Time is a tyrant, as they say in my country. So it's 12. In theory, we don't have much time. We don't have any time, actually, but I would like to ask here the public if they have a question. We will use a little time of the lunch, don't worry. So please feel free to ask. Any? All right, so probably we're all hungry then. So let me use 1 minute though to a bit summarize a couple of the things that the colleagues have said today. I was amazed. I think there was a common theme. There was collaboration / cooperation / trust. Collaboration among the central, the regional, and the local. And this is really one of the key factors for success of what we call development in general, development of all our regions. And let me say a few keywords that I heard from my colleagues, starting from Eric, who talked about reducing complexity and increase capacity. I mean, from our institutions, whatever help we can do we can give in doing that, it is already an amazing advantage. And Ján highlighted the importance of public administration reform, among other things. The public administration is often despised, but it's really the backbone of our system, of our countries, and it needs to be nurtured and developed. So reforms in public administration are key for development. Eric mentioned the issue of growth and social stability. That for me, it boils down to also equality, reducing disparities, generating equality. And Paul, who lived through these years, the project highlighted to my question the vocational education and the work with the Roma communities, and we will take duly note of this, because the possibility of replications elsewhere are really fundamental. Martina, I loved Martina's word about being united at the local, at the regional, at the national level. Without unity, we cannot reach anything. And finally, Susanna, about winning the trust, which I think is really a key point. So it's really inspiring what you said. I think we all of us have lots of commitment to bring forward the Curie program in an integrated way through integrated territorial investments. And I know that by tomorrow we will start with our usual work, with our usual commitment, and generate even more success for the years to come. So let me thank you. It has been quite a bit in a rush, but I am very pleased. So thanks again. Thanks to the panelists. A round of applause. And we'll go for lunch.